Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture. Very pleased to say I am joined now by the legend that is Biggie. Biggie, thank you so much for taking time to chat to us today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No, great to have you on and great to talk to you about this fantastic Kickstarter project of yours, Our Heroes Rock. For those people who are maybe a little bit unaware about it, tell us a little bit more about it.
So this all started for me. I think so after the murder of George Floyd, so many of us were really hit by it, and me especially. It was honestly the first time that the death of someone that I had never met, that I didn't know, really felt very personal. And I think a lot of it had to do also with the pandemic and the fact that we don't have these distractions. We don't have it's not like, hey, I have a flight to catch in 2 hours. I'm sad, but I got to get out of here. You know, we had time to sit and think, and it just kept weighing on me. And I kept thinking about all the societal problems and systemic racism and all these things that feel so weighty and massive and unrootable. And I thought, you know what, I may not be able to topple this system, but I can do something. And so for me, one of the things that I've really come to love in my job with pro wrestling is that you can use your wrestling gear to say something, to express something. And we've been using that oftentimes in the new day to express us being blurs, Black nerds, and our affinity for culture and anime. And I felt like using our gear to make a statement, whether that be solidarity or education, I felt it was important. So, for a while, we had all this free time and I would just kind of go on a walk daily to kind of clear my head or just think. And it kind of became this meditative thing. And during one of my walks, I kept thinking, man, what about doing something akin to Schoolhouse Rock, but for important Black figures? And I know in my educational experience, so often Black history is just confined to February. And it's Martin Luther King, it's Rosa Parks, and maybe slavery, and that's it, and we move on. But Black history is such a massive part of not just the world's history, but it also very much it's a huge part of the fabric of American history. And I felt like these are stories that need to be told more often, that our history is so much more than just two people. And those two people did incredible things, but there's so many more stories to be told. And I had so many conversations with so many of my other Black friends and family members. And we all kind of came to the same conclusion that it wasn't until college or maybe even later in life that we'd heard some of the names like Ida B. Wells or Ruby Bridges. And we felt like, this is a travesty. So I just thought it would be really cool to represent so many of these figures in a Schoolhouse Rock style, that style of art. And I got to give all hats off to Jonathan Davenport, who is incredible. He's been designing our gear since 2015, and he's worked with Woods even before then. And so I just reached out to Jonathan and I said, you know what, if we did this idea, and this wasn't an art style that he'd really worked in before, but he's so incredible that he can just kind of do his homework, do his research, and jump into it. So I remember at first I gave him like 2 or 3 names, then threw like 3 or 4 more. And then, very soon we were at 17. It's like, hey, man, I don't think we can trim this down here. 17 names. Can you find a way to fit them all on my gear or my entrance jacket? And we did the same thing with Woods and Cove's gear as well. And I thought the gear was really well received. We got a lot of good feedback. And we kept thinking, this is pretty cool, but this could be a little bit more, but we didn't know where to go with it. And then my really good buddy, Andreas Hale, who he's a writer. He's worked at BT. He works at DAZN now, Sporting News. He's published. He's done a bunch of incredible things and has worked as an activist too. And he's someone we actually had on our podcast right after the death of George Floyd. And we had this conversation with him because we wanted to have someone who had actually worked in this, who was knowledgeable. And I thought he did such a killer job really putting more context behind our fears and our anxieties. But anyways, we had Andreas kind of, reached out to me and said, this should be way more. So the 3 of us kind of got together and we put our heads together and we came up with this idea to do a short film, to use hip hop, to use science fiction, to use animation to tell the story of one of our Black heroes, and that's Ruby Bridges.
I heard a great quote. It's like a Smithsonian of the future, basically, with just showcasing all of this. And I was hoping when we were chatting about getting you on, I was hoping to have you on and give a big push to this Kickstarter project and get it over the target. You've smashed it already. You hit the target on your birthday, a hell of a birthday present. Now you are hoping to hit your stretch goal and get a top-notch music producer on board. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think because of the nature of Kickstarter, it's all or nothing. So we wanted to make sure we had a goal that we could actually hit, and we felt pretty good with 75,000. But honestly, realistically, we might need closer to double that to tell the story that we want to in the right way. And Ruby Bridges' story is so incredible. For anyone who doesn't know, she was born in 1954, which is the same year as Brown versus Board of Education was passed. And that was supposed to end segregation in schools in the United States. But several states, and especially in the South, were very resistant. And so in 1960, when she was only 6 years old, and you see these pictures of this little girl, just imagine the 6-year-old child who was thrust into the situation that was so much bigger than a little child should have to go through. A school in New Orleans, she integrated for the first time. And her story to me is so compelling because it not just tells the story of this brave little Black girl, but it tells a story too of she had one teacher who was the only one who actually said, I will teach you. Everyone else, there were teachers who quit their jobs, who refused. There was so much uproar around her. But for a whole year, a whole school year, it was just Ruby and this one white teacher. And I think it's such an incredible message because it shows you that you can be young and you can be brave and you can do something that seems bigger than you. But also it tells you that, hey, you might not be Black, but as a non-Black person, you can stand up for what's right. You can help others in need. So there's so many elements of her story that just felt right. But yeah, man, the Kickstarter has gone exceptionally well. And I'm so grateful for all the people who have helped spread the word, who have helped back our project and who have checked it out. I'm so grateful for that. But we still have more work to do. And, we are actually ending our campaign right after WrestleMania. I think April 12th is the end of our campaign. So please feel free to continue spreading the word, backing us and doing all those things because we have more work to do.
Yeah, ourheroesrock.org if you want to go and donate to that. I know you're just about to hit your stretch goal. And like you say, any donations are very much appreciated. And there's obviously reward tiers, et cetera, if you want to go and check that out, ourheroesrock.org. It's clearly something you're incredibly passionate about. It's about, like you say, presenting heroes of Black history. Who are some of your heroes growing up then?
Man, there are so many. I would say for me as a kid, I think the shame I have is that I didn't learn some of these names until I was older in life. And so I remember as a young kid, it's Martin Luther King you're taught about. And I think that's an incredible story. But I also, as I got a little bit older, I learned to gravitate towards Malcolm X and just, how defiant he was. But I wish I had known about, say, Fred Hampton. And there's an incredible movie about Fred Hampton. It's, I think in the States, it's on HBO Max right now. It's called Judas and the Black Messiah. And so Fred Hampton was murdered at 21. And he was so young, such a young man. And I think too often the Black Panthers were vilified. But one of the things that we don't mention enough is the Black Panthers were the ones who started free breakfast programs to make sure that the kids were fed. And there's so many, and that's another thing that I've tried to address and help out with more is addressing food insecurity, because with the pandemic, you had so many kids who were getting lunches, who were getting breakfast, who were getting meals at schools. And now they don't have that same opportunity to be regularly fed. So when you look at inequality, when you look at systemic inequity, there are just so many facets beyond just police brutality. It starts at housing and jobs, and there's so many elements of it. But I wish as a kid that I had known about someone like Fred Hampton or Lorraine Hansberry. There's so many of these names that I think I would have really gravitated to. So many incredible stories, people who were incredibly brave. And that's why we want to bring this Kickstarter project to life, because I think Fred Hampton has an incredible story, and his ending is beyond tragic. To see that he was killed, in his bed, he was sleeping, a man who really fought to better his community. And I think that's an incredible story. And there's so many more stories. too. So we hope to address many of those.
Yeah, exactly. This could be start of something absolutely amazing. If you want to go and support it, as I said, ourheroesrock.org. Every donation really helps towards this fantastic project. Now, we moved it to the wrestling now. You're, of course, returning to SmackDown this week after missing because of injury for a couple of weeks. How are you feeling? And how are you feeling about the new version of Apollo Crews we've seen on TV recently?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm ready to get back. I'm ready to get after it. I will have to say, I think Apollo has he stepped up, man. I'll give him that. He's one of those guys who I think too often you see is extremely talented and never gets that opportunity. And it's a what could have been. And my hope for him is that no one has to ask those questions anymore, that there's no what could have been with Apollo, that we get to see him hit that ceiling. Because for me, man, it's iron sharpens iron. I think there's some people, some talent, some wrestlers who want to make sure the limelight is always on them. But when you have the best feuds, when you have the best opponents, that just makes you better. And that's what I want. I don't want to just be able to easily roll through everyone handed to me. I want to fight the best. I want to be in the ring with the best. I want people to remember, like the same way that people still hit us up about the Usos matches from 3-4 years ago. I want that as a singles. I want that with Apollo. I want feuds that people are like excited to see. And that's been something that's been really, it's been cool to see, even though we're, things have gotten heated between us. I will commend him for stepping up. I'll commend him for taking that opportunity to not just do the same old thing. And I think he's in that midst of finding his footing as a character. He was a guy who always had a great look. He could always do incredible things. You see a guy who can effortlessly do moonsaults and can gorilla press people. Much like Cesaro, that I love that combination of strength and speed. Like that to me is, you got like your perfect wrestler all in one with a guy like Cesaro, when a guy can do so many facets of that. And there's so much of that in Apollo, of a guy who can blend all these styles so well. And for him, it was just a matter of finding that opportunity, character-wise and entertainment-wise and promo-wise, to really find a lane. And right now, he's carving that path, and it's cool to see. And as much as I look forward to whooping his ass, I also am looking forward to seeing him grow as a character.
Yeah, it's obviously, or I should assume it has been a relatively tough time for you on SmackDown, being apart from Kofi and Woods, of course. But it must be such an exciting time as well, because there is so much talent on the blue brand. You look across the title pictures, whether it be the women's title or the Intercontinental title or the world title. There's so much excitement about what's going on there as we head towards WrestleMania.
No, completely, man. We got so many guys who, if you look at the guys who've kind of crossed paths with Roman lately, or who have just gotten more opportunities lately, man, there's so many guys who you could see believably holding a world title. Like I mentioned Cesaro, there's Bryan, there's Kevin Owens. You see how Jey Uso has stepped up. We have so many guys of that caliber who now are conceivable. Like it makes sense to see them in that world title picture. There's a ton of talent on SmackDown, so many future Hall of Famers, so many really talented people. And I really like our show. I like the people we have on it. I like the women's side too. It's been so heartwarming to see Bianca get the opportunity she deserves. She's a one of one. Seeing a woman with that kind of athleticism, who just owns, like, she knows who she is. She is unabashedly her. And I love that. She's incredible. And it's so inspiring to see Sasha continue to not just get to the top and coast, but to see her continue to have outstanding performance after outstanding performance. And now you have like Bayley is almost, I don't want to say on the periphery, but she's done an incredible job too. And she's not even really in that conversation right now, but she's finding new ways to reinvent herself. And it's so incredible to me to look back at Bayley and think there's so many people who saw her as, wow, that's a lifetime babyface. That's someone who, like a Ricky Steamboat, who will always make kids smile. That's her role, and she's going to nail it. But then she finally gets this opportunity to be a heel, and she's knocked it out the park, man. She's reinvented herself in an incredible way. And that, to me, that stuff is really inspiring when I see people from different divisions and from all across the company continue to find ways to grow and to show different facets of themselves.
Now, we're, of course, on the road to WrestleMania, which will have fans in attendance. You must be so excited to have fans back there, far more than we've seen over the past year, really. What have you missed most about having fans or not having fans there?
Man, fans are everything. And it can sound cliche, and I get it, but in pro wrestling, that's one of the first things that you learn to do. Like, that's the basis of our business, is fan reaction, the ability to control a crowd, to get them to boo, to cheer, to laugh. That is the essence of what we do. And the Thunderdome that's our best plan B. That's our best, like, hey, sorry guys, it's a pandemic. We're giving you the best we can. I think they've done a great job putting a ton of money into that and making it look as good as possible. And of course, like, health and safety is something that's vitally important. And, I don't know how you scoff at 500,000 people in this country alone dying because of coronavirus. So it's something that, I'm all for taking as much time as we need to make sure this is under control first. But I'm really excited to be able to perform in front of fans again. It's my hometown. I'm born and raised in Tampa. I still live here. So it's going to be pretty cool to be at Raymond James, a place that, like, I played my high school football all-star game there when I was, 17. I've been there for a bowl game in college. So Raymond James feels very much like, and I joked with the guys on our podcast with Kofi and Woods that I helped build Raymond James, because there was at the time when they went from the old Sombrero to Raymond James, there was a little tax that they used to help build the stadium. And as a Tampa native, I feel like, I helped build it in a way. So it's going to be really cool to have fans there. And I'm excited because, like I said, man, fans are your barometer. And I miss that barometer. They tell you if something is good or if something is bad. They give you that instant live feedback. And I love that one town that we can be in LA, or we can be in London, we can be in Tokyo, and every crowd will be different. And that's what I love about pro wrestling in our industry. And hopefully when this pandemic is under control, we can get back to doing that regularly.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to say, I loved your WWE 24. I know you yourself said you were too embarrassed. You don't like watching people heap praise upon you, but it's absolutely fantastic and a wonderful story about you coming through the system and from the beginnings, like you say, of football and then wrestling. It's amazing. I didn't realize quite how I don't want to say luck, because you worked incredibly hard, but it's the coincidences and the things that gave you those opportunities that you seized. It's astonishing. Yeah,
man, this is the story of my life. Every really big thing that I wanted kind of came out of nowhere, and I just lucked into it. So, one of the reasons that I want to do more to give back now is I feel like so many people gave to me. There's so many people who blessed me, who really, I really believe there's no making it alone. There's not like getting to any good point in your life. There are people who influenced you directly or indirectly, and I'm so grateful for all those people. And I'm very fortunate, because it's I tell people too, when I was 22 years old, if you asked me to list 100 jobs, 200 jobs, I'm telling you, pro wrestler would not be on the list. It would not. Yeah, I never. In terms of like, you talk about doing football and things like that, and then just sort of stumbling into wrestling. What other jobs were you considering? So I was in grad school at the time, and I wanted to be an athletic director. That was my plan was actually, spend one more year, because I had 1 year completed on my master's. I was probably going to spend another year getting my master's, and then I was contemplating going to school to work on my doctorate, which would have been another 5 years of being poor, and then hoping to work in an athletic department somewhere or possibly teach. And all of a sudden, my life just kind of went elsewhere. And when I first got to school, to college, I was pre-med for a little bit. And then I very quickly realized this is not for me. Pre-med kicked my ass. But I was there was definitely that period in my life when I was like 22, 23, where my head was kind of spinning. It's like, what do I do with my life now? I had no idea. So I'm beyond grateful for this because when I'm in a ring or when I'm at work, I feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm at the right spot. This feels like the place I'm supposed to be. And I never would have fathomed, I've been doing this for almost 12 years and it's been a blessing and I'm grateful for it.
There was me thinking the wrestling mailman gimmick was based on something.
Yeah.
Now,
it was an idea.
You were talking recently, I saw on another podcast about, how thankful you are for the New Day, because the 24 special itself, it sort of charts the way that you kind of lost your way a little bit and you weren't sure. And then obviously this amazing friendship and relationship with Woods and Kofi just burst you back onto the scene. And there's talk obviously in that documentary as well about you potentially being involved in the Shield early. If you could have been a member of any other wrestling stable of any time, which one would you have liked to have been a part of?
Oh, this might feel like a lazy answer, but the Nation of Domination was, yes. that was the one as a kid. I just liked their presence. I was also a huge Ron Simmons fan because, for one, I grew up a big Florida State fan as a Florida kid, and I think he was a Heisman Trophy candidate, which, if you don't know, is almost impossible to do as a nose tackle. He was one of the best defensive linemen to ever do it. So Ron Simmons was my guy, and just again, like Mark Henry, who was one of the strongest men to ever walk the earth. So from that standpoint too, just really being into his strength stuff, they just were cool. I mean, it really just boils down to that. Those guys were just real cool. And you go back and watch their stuff now, and they're just massive human beings. My God, they're all like, D'Lo's the smallest, and D'Lo's not tiny. No. They're all just massive humans. So yeah, I'd say the Nation of Domination, which is kind of what we wanted to be initially. That's essentially what the New Day was. That was Woods' very first pitch, was doing essentially a Nation of Domination 2.0, and the writers all kind of just laughed at him. And when we came out, the very first time you see us I think we're in Miami in 2014, that summer, and he's wearing that white and red suit. That's what we wanted the faction to be. And it's funny because at the time it was not funny, but he comes out and he cuts his promo about like the smiling and the laughing, and that's all over. Now, like, it was supposed to be the start of something pretty militant. And then, and within a few short months, we're doing everything that he mentioned to the nth degree, clapping as absurdly as we can. But thankfully, we were able to turn things around, and we ended up okay. Things are all right for us.
Yes, I was going to say, it starts off Nation Domination, cuts to Vince saying, "You're going to be a bunch of preachers," and then it cuts to you guys falling out a box of bootios and wearing unicorn horns. Who can imagine these sorts of things? Now, one thing I had to ask you about, I was doing a bit of digging. Is it true that you made an Arn Anderson dating profile, or have I completely misheard this?
No, it's true. So I think I don't know if I think I first said it on the podcast, and I love Arn, by the way, and I don't think I never told him this. And it was just something. So we would always, Celeste and I, who worked with WWE's Caitlin, is one of my best friends. And we just would do things it's the road, you do things to entertain yourself. And we loved Arn. And for some reason, the thought of Arn being on a dating website was real funny to us. This is probably like 7 years ago. So I think I ended up making a quick dating profile for Arn, but I never responded to any of the messages. I don't even think I used his name as Arn. At the time, it was very funny, but now when I think about it, it seems real childish and not as funny. But at the time, it really made me giggle. So I apologize to Arn. I love you, Arn, and I miss you.
It would have made the weirdest episode of Catfish I think I've ever seen. Yes. There's some weird ones out there. Now, of course, everyone knows about you being asked about facing any opponent and the whole Goldberg thing, which is just hilarious. That is something that entertains the WhatCulture office on a regular. We've seen recently with Randy Orton and Soldier Boy, more sort of celebrity beef. So I wanted to ask you if you could have a dream match with any celebrity, who would you like to face?
Man, that is a good question. I really haven't given it a ton of thought. But man, you kind of stumped me here. I don't think I've been asked this one in a while. Let me think of a celebrity I want to have a match with. I was thinking like rapper, because I really love rap and staying in that rap lane. Wale is my guy, so I can't face Wale, but maybe this is a bad answer because no one else. I'm going to say Freddie Gibbs because I think Gibbs is a really talented rapper that I really enjoy, and I'm sure a lot of people who are looking for a name that they would recognize would be disappointed by this. But if you don't like Freddie Gibbs and you like rap or you haven't heard of Freddie Gibbs, listen to Freddie Gibbs. He's very talented, and I think he'd be a solid pro wrestler. So let's go with Freddie Gibbs because I don't really have another good answer. That's my answer.
I went down the same lane because I saw you talking about rappers and stuff and potential matches, and I just went for the whitest possible answer. I was like, Big E, Jay-Z, job done. There we go.
Well, Jay-Z, all respect to Jay-Z, but he's, the man's in his 50s.
Yeah.
And I know they're wrestlers around doing their thing in their later years, but that's, I don't think Jay-Z's out there taking bumps. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's anything that we can even foresee happening. The Soulja Boy thing sounds absurd, but I could actually see that being a thing. Maybe next Mania. You never know in this business. You never know.
With Bow Wow's calling people out left, right, and center as well.
There's Bow Wow too, and Bad Bunny's been killing it. So if you asked me a year ago, I never would have fathomed that. The fact that he's been training evidently at the PC, from what I hear, and has been on Raw regularly. These are all very strange times, very bizarre times.
Very, very weird. Finally, you talked a little bit about WrestleMania 38 there. Whispers, I know it's a long way off and many things may change before then, but what do you reckon to the idea of a match between yourself and Roman Reigns for that Universal Championship? Because I think it would be a nailed-on main event for next year.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal to be in that tier, to be at the very top. I think Roman's done a stellar job. Everyone's stellar isn't even a good enough superlative to describe how much he's elevated himself, even though he was already at the top. And I think his presentation, the promos, the character stuff, all that stuff has been really cool to see. And he's been killing it. So, much respect to him. But yeah, man, I think that would be, as far as if I could pick any opponent, that would be the one. That would be the one. So hopefully by next year, he's still got the title. And that would, if he's that'd be over 400 days. And we'll see. There's a lot that can happen from now till then. But yeah, that would be it.
Well, exciting times ahead. Best of luck on your return to SmackDown, on the road to WrestleMania, of course. And like we mentioned earlier, if you want to support this fantastic cause of Big E's, ourheroesrock.org. Big E, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat to WhatCulture. And hopefully we'll speak to you again very soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man.